So, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 3 of our Women's Health. Today we're extremely privileged to be joined by a very special friend of mine, and our special guest is Lou Woodbridge. Now, Lou's going to be talking to you all about when she first started using the ketones, which was probably back in March time, how she has got a very, very personal story, how sleep was her enemy, having gone through a seriously personal tragedy over 15 years ago, but how this has really supported her, and how it's continued to change her life. She's the most fabulous mum of 5. She's joined us today from her home in St. Mawes in Cornwall, so we couldn't be more grateful for her coming in from the sunshine and putting a top on top of her bikini. But Lou, if we can take you off mute now, and you can perhaps tell everybody your story, because it's a very, very powerful story, and I think the people that have wanted to join today have perhaps gone through similar difficult times, or they're still struggling today with sleep. Tell us your story, Lou.
Right, okay. Hi everyone. So I went through, or my family and my husband, we went through a life-changing bereavement nearly 16 years ago. Sorry if I start getting tearful. 2 of our children were killed in an accident at home, and it pretty much changes your whole life, child bereavement. And I was actually 8 months pregnant at the time that my children died. I also had a 4-year-old and a 10-year-old. So my post-traumatic stress really started from the moment my children died, but it manifested itself in sleep. I hadn't slept properly for nearly 16 years. Obviously, the horror of closing your eyes and going through such a bereavement means you're terrified to go to sleep. You then become in this terrible, circle of being unable to sleep. I was then very privileged to have 3 more babies, so of course I was up feeding them, and sleep. I would worry about going to sleep after a night of having no sleep every single day at lunchtime, having that absolute panic of what time should I go to bed, how long will I be awake for. Just awful. I was on prescription sleeping tablets. I was on over-the-counter sleeping tablets. Some would work for 2 days, some would work for 3 nights. I'd wake up feeling groggy, hungover, just awful. Then, the panic of lying in bed, thinking, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, what am I going to do? And I've got to be up, and they've got to do the school run. And, we've all had moments. So, and obviously when you are in bereavement, child bereavement never leaves you. The cycle of grief and lack of sleep and how they entwine in one another is quite overwhelming. However, Catherine and I have been friends for many years, and when she introduced me to ketones, it was, said it could support one's sleep. Now, I was a bit skeptical, if I'm honest with you, because I've tried most things. Now, I have a very healthy lifestyle to a certain point, but I love exercise. I eat well. I don't carry a lot of extra weight, but I thought, let's give this a go. So I went along and I started ketones, and I thought there's no way that actually just going to take this drink is going to make me sleep after nearly 16 years. What a load of baloney, if I'm honest with you. However, I took the leap of faith. And when I say the leap of faith, I thought, right, I'm going to do it. I am going to do it. I'm going to take these. And it was on a Monday. I never forget it. And I slept for the first time without any other prescription, over-the-counter, aromatherapy oil, anything, for the first time ever. And when I woke up in the morning, my husband cried and I cried, and it was quite overwhelming. It was just like, oh my God, I can do it. And it was liberating, absolutely life-changing for me. And I don't say that lightly. It was, then I did it the next night as well, and the next night, and the next night. And I was like, oh my God, this is like a whole new thing going on. And it has been, for me, the most brilliant thing I've ever done. I know the science behind it, but it works. It worked for me. However, after about, I would say, I don't know, 6 weeks, Catherine, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I just started going a little bit backwards. I had a couple of really bad nights, and that terrible fear of, oh my God, not again, I'm going backwards. I really don't want to take a tablet, and I really want to sleep, and that real panic, and that what do I do? So I sort of made this a very emergency call at 6:30 in the morning to Catherine and said, oh my God, what am I going to do? And she very kindly spoke to Jennifer, who, tweaks what I take, bang, back to normal. I've got so many ketones in Cornwall. I've sort of become quite obsessive about them. I've got boxes and boxes and boxes. I was on the beach the other day going, you've got to try them. If there's anything wrong with you, you've got to go on them immediately. So sleep actually obviously has been this magical newfound thing for me, which has been amazing. But also on another level, it's really supported me. I really like running and work out quite a lot, and it gives me more focus to do that. I'm fasting quite a lot more, which I find that ketones really supports that. Takes away those silly sort of, oh, I really want some dairy milk at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and a cup of tea. That sort of has gone. So although I'm not on it for a weight loss purpose, it definitely supports that as well. So all in all, for myself personally, of course, my bereavement, I never want to go away, because I don't. But it allows me to manage it so much better and in such a more positive way, because I'm not sleep deprived. Because in actual fact, it's just like being tortured when you don't sleep for so long. And when people say to me, oh, I'm such an insomniac, and they've actually not slept for one night ever, went to bed and went, oh, I didn't go to sleep till 2 in the morning. It's actually quite crippling, because when you are an insomniac, it's really detrimental to one's health, and it's tough. I feel relieved, and can only thank Catherine and Jennifer for tweaking everything. So I'm not sure who's taking them or who's not or whatever, but from and mine is so personal, and I'm completely telling the truth. So go for it. Anyway, that's me. So I hope that's sort of helped you guys, or
Lou, that's it. It's such an incredible story, and you're so brave to come on and talk to us all about it, and and just with such honesty and such passion. So I can't thank you enough. But as you all know on this call, I'm not the expert either, but I love to share, and this is what all this is about now, is just sharing. And that's what we did with Lou. But I think we need to switch to Jennifer, who is our expert, most fabulous naturopath, who's studied ketones for many years and really understands personal health. Jennifer, what did you kind of put together to be the optimum program to support Lou in these changes?
Hi, well, I just want to say, lovely to meet you finally over the screen, Lou, and thank you for sharing your story. It's so hard to share. But actually, through your immense suffering, so many others will come to a point of hope through this. So I sincerely want to thank you for having the courage, to do it, because it's really tough for you. And actually, I want to carry on with sleep. Sleep is crippling if people don't have sleep. And you're absolutely right, Lou, that sometimes it can be a bit galling when you have someone who, exactly as you said, oh, I didn't get to sleep till whatever time in the morning. But, true sleep deficit has an impact on you, on your insulin, on you physiologically. Naturally, it has a huge impact on your brain as well. So it's critical to get sleep back into balance. But equally, when you've had a massive trauma, the whole system's turned upside down. But yes, so what I worked with Lou initially was, as quick as possible, we got to the 2 packets a day. And that's because ketones have got within the body a 2 to 6 hour lifespan in the blood, and then they're gone. So if you have a ketone in the morning, then it's not going to be helpful, particularly later in the day. Now, how I work with patients with sleep disorders is that exactly as Lou found initially, that can be super powerful, and you really notice that change by having one in the morning and then having one in the evening. Now, some start with them in the afternoon, because ketones do seem to complete a lot of biological processes, I've noticed. So some people find actually initially they have more energy in the evening, which isn't ideal if they're needing to wind the body down. But I do find in general with people, when they need sleep, the body does utilize them for that. Now, one of the reasons is some of the research is pointing towards something called a GABA to glutamate rate. And GABA rather is a neurotransmitter that has a very calming effect on the body. And it's really beneficial to the brain to have more of this. And as I said, we're beginning to see some evidence that the GABA rates are sort of heightened through ketones, be it MCT, drinking the water-soluble exogenous ketones, the fasting ketogenic diet, and so forth. But when you've had an extended period of stress, I also wanted to point out the importance of your brain doesn't uptake the glucose as well as it used to. Now, this process can actually start to decline when we're over the age of 30, but they have noticed that when there's any stress and trauma, this does impact on many systems and can trigger insulin resistance. So when the brain is more insulin resistant, they found that the neurons aren't fed so well by the glucose. So your brain is literally starving at night. And what they found is that ketones, be it from an MCT source, which is when you would take an MCT oil, which is a derivative taken from coconut oil, and the MCT simply stands for medium chain triglycerides. Now, this is quite a unique fat that has the ability just to go quite quickly into the body and into the liver, and then it's converted into your own, what they call endogenous. Your bodies produce your own ketones. So those ketones work really well with the brain. And the water soluble ones, they're noticing it's a very clean fuel for the brain. And like at the moment, some of you may be doing the reboot at the moment in the UK, which is a physical detoxification process. Your brain at night actually does need to clear. And this process is called synaptic pruning. And they found again that the ketones are utterly necessary to have at night to allow this process to continue. So what I find when there's been a real sleep issue, especially a chronic one for an extended period of time, is as the body adapts to the ketones, you sometimes need to bring more ammunition in. So an excellent thing, this is how I sort of describe it, as sort of like Lou, you were talking about chocolate earlier. If you imagine the ketones are your bar of chocolate, and the MCT oil is a bowl of brown rice. So we're just talking carbohydrates here. So the chocolate is going to bolt into your body fast and give you an immediate source of energy. Exactly the same as the water-soluble ketones that we know are active in under the hour. So what I want to do with patients is also elongate that process of ketone production through the night. Because if you imagine, even if you used it for 6 hours overnight, you need to sleep longer than 6 hours. So it's having it as close as possible to bedtime. And then what I did was mixed it with MCT, because then you've got the delayed reaction, rather like the bowl of brown rice. So you've got the delayed reaction of your body then producing its own ketones alongside that. Now, the other thing as well, if someone really suffers with sleep, it's brilliant to bring in particular the mineral magnesium in. And that's why I often suggest either magnesium as a supplement or magnesium salt baths at night, because so many of us are addicted to our phones and our screens, which totally affects our system and our electromagnetic field around us. And the sea salt baths are actually one way to try to neutralize that frequency. So that's a really helpful thing. Plus the magnesium goes into your body and is nature's carminative. Sometimes I bring in herbs like things like valerian root, passion flower, amino acids like L-theanine, which again is a very gentle amino acid, but just helps drop the body into more of a calm, relaxed state. So we used a product called Signal OS, which has a PM formula with all of these delicious sleep ingredients in, along with MCT and the water-soluble ketone taken pretty well all together at bedtime, so that it was all firepower to give the body the nutrition it needed, but also an extended window of ketones for the brain.
That sounds fantastic. I love the bit about magnesium. So Lou, I think you're in the right place in St. Maur's, aren't you? You just need to get yourself dipping yourself in the sea. You'll be absolutely fine. You have to take your top off and get back in the sea when you finish this call. But so Jen, I mean, whilst we, I think we've got, living proof and, obviously all your science and understanding behind it, and Lou's actual living proof of how this is so beneficial to people's sleep. But are there any other kind of sleep hacks alongside the ketones? And we've talked about other products, but anything that we can do alongside the salt baths, or perhaps how we bring ourselves down before we go to bed, how we can support our bodies to sleep better?
Yeah, good question. I think one of the things is, it's like ketones. I often go back to how our ancestors used to live, and how actually we did run on two fuels. We had the ketone and the glucose mechanism, and it's exactly the same. I always like to look at how we live primally, and when we lived primally, it was, we lived according to natural rhythms. And this is going to sound really boring of me, but we've sort of lost the rhythms now, and we have the blue light of the phone or an iPad right the way up to sleep time. And then many people, especially when I discuss it with patients, because it will come up on a bioresonance scan if the electromagnetic field has been disturbed by this frequency. And so really simple tip is to try, really, this is a bit of an addiction, and we know the ketones actually do help us with this side of things. So maybe a bit of a project for people is just to be aware. Like last week, I talk about, when did you finish your last mouthful? Your awareness this week is, can you put your phone down 2 hours before you go to bed, so that you don't have the blue light, because the blue light totally affects melatonin. So you won't have such deep sleep. And equally, again, another thing, if you don't have good blackout curtains, and we don't, and it's a nuisance, because literally every morning at 5 in the morning I'm wide awake because our blackout blinds don't fit the window. So immediately, by having, albeit natural light, it's switching my cortisol hormone on, and therefore it's waking me up. So going back to light, so try to live as our ancestors did, and just have a ritual like you do with your children, a bedtime ritual where you just set a time. And in Chinese medicine, they often say, really, your liver does a lot of processing at night. At 11 o'clock, it starts that processing according to Chinese medicine. So if you can be even just reading in bed at night with a natural warm bulb light, and then when you wake in the morning, they say the first thing to do is ideally look at sunlight, not your phone, if you can. Another thing at night is just 5 minutes of conscious relaxation, whether you call that meditation, gratitude time, prayer time, to get into that sort of calm space. And it's very hard, as Lou attested to, that when you have a fear of sleep because you have had such traumatic broken sleep, then it sets up a pattern. And it's sometimes good, not meaning in loose state, but other people with not such sleep disorders, of just trusting and believing and praying your body knows how to get to sleep. So if you just can do some basic rhythms and respect the rhythms of nature, and then you'll be respecting what's called your own circadian rhythm, then again your body needs to sleep. That's when your body repairs, it detoxifies. So one of the most important things we can do, guys, so if you can, and ideally we need minimum 7 hours, anyone over the age of 40.
That's absolutely brilliant, Jen. By looking at everyone's faces on my screen when you mentioned putting their phone down 2 hours before bed, I think there are a large number that are going to struggle. But what I will say is I know that Lou is like mum of the year. She really makes her kids do that, and I've never managed to emulate
well done.
that, but very well done. But listen, I mean, we're so privileged that you took the time to join us and share your story, Lou. I couldn't be more grateful. Obviously, you guys have been on and you've listened to this. Hopefully you're all have joined the Ketone Education Squad, which is our Facebook page, where we will always advertise the upcoming calls on different things that we'll be discussing. And then there will also be the Zoom link so you can go through this again, because I know it's quite hard to take in all the good, brilliant information that Jennifer gives us all at once. But again, we're sharing, we want you to share this. I don't doubt you've all got a family member or a friend out there who could really utilize this story. So, please do go ahead, get back to the people who invited you on the call, and, ensure that we're spreading the word of, how we can really transform lives. But have a very happy rest of Monday, everybody. And thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.